So it's now time for that bonus match. That sixth match of the day. This long-awaited rematch between two titans who battled it out in the finals of the World Championship with one of the best Game 5s that I have ever seen. And I can't wait to see how they're going to fight this one out. Viper has got a couple of very unique decks in his lineup. So Paladin banned on Viper's side that I can see right there. And he's protected his Priest deck as well. Is that right? That's Hunterace. I am ridiculously dumb. So Paladin's been banned away. Priest, I'm a bit stupid. For Viper, his Rogue has been banned away. It's Pogo Rogue that's been banned away from him, mind you. And he's protected his Shaman, which we're going to take a look at right now. Peanut Shaman is what he likes to call this, Sottle.
It goes to the levels of like how off-the-wall Viper's lineup is this week that he's brought Pogo Rogue and we just haven't mentioned it. Like, it just hasn't entered the realm of ridiculous things for us to talk about. But peak on that list is this variation of Control Shaman, which, yeah, Viper refers to generally as Peanut Shaman when he comes up with these kind of wacky lists. There's been a couple of different builds that have fallen under that moniker, but for now, this is the build he has. King Feoris in there, Shudderwock in there, Elysiana in there, all kinds of AoE, double Scheme and double Earthquake. Hagatha coming down as an AoE option in there as well as late game value. Like, this is set out to go very, very long.
How cool is King Feoris and Shudderwock?
Yeah, I'll give it a solid 7.6 on the coolness factor.
King Feoris, he's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Hunterace going to battle with Druid first. His Druid deck does not feature Tending Tauren. It does.
What a dummy!
It does, however, feature a Mind Control tech.
Okay.
And he does play at least the Enlightened with Zephrys in the build. The double no duplicates. I wonder if he can get him active sooner than Swids did.
That is ridiculous. Someone out there with some time on their hands, please calculate the odds of that and then send it to me, because I'm sure it's tiny.
I'm going to tweet at him right now.
Tweet at who? What? Who are you tweeting at?
Steve.
Oh, fair enough.
At Wicked Good on Twitter. There we go. That actually works better. Then I don't have to tweet it in the middle of the thing. Let us know. I know you love doing the math. Oasis Surger in the opener. Nah, you'll love to see that if you're a Druid. Double Hagatha Scheme in the opener. You'll love to see that if you're a Control Shaman.
You love to see that if you're a Peanut. AFK from Hunterace, turn 2, no great surprise. And a functional AFK on the other side from Viper, pressing the hero power.
Hey, don't you talk that way about Healing Totem.
Yeah, alright.
Go ahead, you try to hero power it down, see what happens. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that's what I thought. Don't talk to me or my Healing Totem ever again.
That will make this cast a little bit awkward if I wasn't allowed to talk to you.
Touche.
Yeah. I guess if we needed a test of all of the AoE and clearing potential and staying power that this Shaman deck has, the best possible test we can put it up against in the current metagame is this Druid. Like, this is the king of making boards right now.
Yeah.
Viper seems to be playing the deck that's the king of blowing them up.
I want to give a shout out to the Thunderhead buff and how important it is in this matchup too. Because prior to it being buffed, it would have just straight up died to Oasis Surger, and like, that's it. It takes both attacks of Oasis Surger to clear it off now. That's a big difference. Softening those up to 3 health.
Just a pass again from Viper. Quite often you just see this be a Spirit of the Frog turn for this kind of deck, but I think Viper anticipating that he's not really going to be casting too many spells on the following turn because Hunterace isn't going to give him targets to do so.
Yep.
So why would he play a Spirit of the Frog and then have it unstealth and then have Hunterace be able to deal with it on the following turn on his terms?
Hunterace shook his head. I wonder what he's thinking about.
I wonder.
Oh, so many things, Admirable.
What's your best guess?
You live a day in the life of Hunterace's mind. I think if anything, he's probably just upset that he hasn't had like anything to do in the early turns. I know it sounds silly because Druid is kind of happy to do this, but there are things you can occupy yourself with doing, even if you're floating turn 2 and turn 3. Untapped potential, bees, just generating a board, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. No copies of bees in the deck for Hunterace.
Well, I guess that's where the mind control tech's sitting instead. And it's in that kind of spot.
Viper hangs on to the Thunderhead too. Some other thing to think about with the Spirit of the Frog as well is like he could have chained off a bit with Haunting Visions, but A, he doesn't know what he wants from Haunting Visions necessarily, and B, he's got to think about hand space.
Right.
So many decks have to consider hand size now. Quite unusual.
What to do?
Yep. That's what I say when I say I don't really want to spend a day inside the mind of Hunterace. It must be exhausting. If you're already distressed over your decisions this early on into a game where, you know, to the layman, to the plebs looking on, it appears that nothing has happened, but Hunterace is already clearly evaluating so many different lines in this position.
Time waits for no one.
I just have no idea. I actually don't.
Cycling Wrath, playing Oasis Surger for 3/3s for some reason. Like, I don't know.
Going through everything.
Yep. It's just what he does.
Think about hand space perhaps. Goes to 8 cards. If he nourishes, goes down to 7 up to 10. Like odds that you burn something. That could have been a reasonable thought. Like, should you just spend the Wrath?
Oh, I see what he's saying. Yeah, 8 cards on the draw. Cast Nourish down to 7 up to 10.
Spend a Wrath, spend a swipe.
Well, no, because you get the mana back anyway, so you can just spend the Wrath next turn in that case.
What draws a card next turn?
Sure. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
So, you know, expenditure of Wrath versus swipe. I don't know. It's just, I'm trying to figure out something he was thinking about.
Yeah. The answer, as always,
Too much.
everything. Yeah.
It's Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone realistically is considering 14 million plus outcomes to a single game of Hearthstone, that boy up there who is currently on a 10-game winning streak against the very best players in the very best region of Hearthstone.
And how many of those did you swipe a taunt totem?
One. Okay, Admirable's broken.
It's so funny! How does it fit perfectly? Like, it's...
Let's find the Innovate to get himself out of the awkward position with hand size.
Crystal Merchant wouldn't have done it as well. With 2 nurses in hand, I think that the draw on that card is, you know, pretty heavily diminished.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I was curious about the War Druid Lodi just getting it set.
Power of the Wild as well, while we're on the subject.
What to do?
So I think that's a debate. Toss away the Crystal Merchant, burn a card, or perhaps just burn the Innovate too. I mean, that's possible.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if you didn't have Crystal.
Yeah, Innovate Loti would be my instinct for sure. Just because spell damage swipe versus Shaman, just as far back in time as you possibly want to go, has just always been the nuts.
Yeah, and then for Viper here, he's been thinking about, you know, how he counters a turn from Hunterace. He's anticipating some sort of development there. 4/6 stealth. That makes doing stuff a little bit tougher.
Yes, it does.
So I think for Viper, that play of the Spirit of the Frog might have been a nod to perhaps discarding. Like, I have a second one. Hand is stacked.
What to do?
He's going to burn the... Is it after you cast a spell?
Yeah.
So he's burning the card he's drawn from deck, which with 2 hexes in hand is nothing.
Yeah, it just doesn't draw.
There's little time.
This one does, though.
Lightning bolt.
Yep. So bizarre. You're playing your card draw engines in order to not burn cards. That seems very backwards.
Zaps his own totem. With no one-cost things left in the deck. That's it. Now Viper seems upset.
I mean, rightly so. That was a weird, janky-looking turn.
I don't have a problem with a janky-looking turn if it doesn't feel like it was that bad to me. I mean, just keep waiting.
Yeah.
You know, inherently, Viper's deck is in a deck that really makes much progress. It waits and it waits and it waits.
Yep. Definitely not happy, though. Hunterace finally pulls the trigger, makes his first, like, legitimately aggressive play of the game.
Yeah, you probably kill that one. Attacks for 4 in anticipation of the board getting cleared.
Yep.
Schemes are big enough.
Yeah, 2 schemes at 8 right now. Plenty of damage to take care of this board state, and an Earthquake to back that up afterwards.
I wonder.
Hunterace, if you're playing Druid here, you've got to really be in the business of just getting the smallest boards you can AoE'd over and over again. And if you're in Viper's shoes, when you're faced with board states like this, instead of going to the Hagatha scheme, you have to think, well, is Thunderhead good enough here instead? And I think it might be. I think using a Hagatha scheme here might even just be an overreaction.
Ooh.
All right, like Thunderhead double Lightning Bolt is a lot of clearing power this turn.
Kills 2 things.
Yep. Kills 2 things and with a couple of 1/1s to spare. And that's the question. Like, Viper will know the answer to this question, but how many boards do you actually need to AoE in this matchup? Viper will for sure have the answer from his testing for that.
Willing to take 5 more.
Hex Bolt, okay. Didn't look at this one. It seems worse in terms of clearing power than the Thunderhead Lightning Bolt because, yes, you remove 2 minions, but the Frog still being an actual minion in play against one of the best buff decks in the game still represents a threat of damage coming through on the other side.
Yeah.
So he's clearly valuing Thunderhead higher as a resource than I am in the matchup.
I wonder.
Could also be the fact of the double overload. I wonder if that changes anything.
Sure, yeah. So he's going, this means he goes into next, okay, yeah, so this means he goes into next turn with 7 instead of 8, so in an emergency, he does just have any option available to him. But he wouldn't necessarily need to Earthquake because his schemes are so big anyway on the following turn.
I think it's...
Interesting.
I think it's wanting to Earthquake over Scheme, perhaps? Like, just, it's 7 mana versus 5 mana later down the road. Either way, he's going to have to do something next turn, because 5/8 is out of reach, I believe, both of those. I think the schemes are...
No, the schemes are huge. They're 9 next turn, I think.
Yeah, schemes are at 8 currently.
Okay.
That's a big deal, and I imagine Hunterace is going to be interested in trying to take advantage of that push somehow. He's got a huge hand. But Viper's got a huge amount of clear as well.
Yep.
So I think, kind of thinking about it, one of the ideal setups then would be to force the other scheme, which would mean that Hunterace survives an Earthquake.
I wonder.
Yep.
So does that mean King Ferris has a likelihood to force scheme?
No, King Ferris is less likely to force scheme because King Ferris makes boards that do die to Earthquake. Hunterace doesn't make boards. Hunterace makes boards that don't die to Earthquake, so it would have to force the scheme. Dr. Morrigan again keeps coming up.
Hunterace does not like that one, and I think rightfully so. The minions in his deck, Libidinous Floop, Zephyrus. Like, you don't want those to get pulled out by Dr. Morrigan.
Nope. You are, however, interested in sticking damage to the board by any means necessary when your opponent is at 11 and playing an AoE deck. That much I will say.
At least the Enlightened. Oasis Surger.
All I'm hearing is a bunch of cards that have an attack value on them.
Touché.
What to do?
Whoa.
There is little time.
So the scheme here is saying I have Earthquake Bolt for scenarios.
Okay.
Oh, and that's the worst one that comes out. Oh my. And you see Hunterace wince when he sees it because he knows that the Lightning Bolt's in hand, but B, it also means you don't have a 5-mana double 5/5 rush.
Is it the worst one?
Yeah!
Worse than Elise?
I think so.
I'm sure I agree with that one.
I may be thinking short-sighted here, but I'm looking at 14 cards left in the deck.
What to do?
It's also just what it means. It means your opponent gets to Lightning Bolt it, you don't connect from
Yeah,
that.
okay, so,
Yeah.
like, I think if all things being equal, if a minion's going to come out and Viper is going to kill it, I think there were several worse outcomes, or at least 2 worse outcomes than the Oasis Surge.
What to do?
I think at least would have ended up being hexed. Viper's healing in the deck, important to note. 2 copies of Witch's Brew and 2 copies of Omega Bomb.
Waits for no one. What to do?
And 2 copies of Walking Fountain.
Oh, I always forget that thing is lifesteal. Yeah.
Because I think, like, to further explain the thinking on, like, there being significantly worse cards to lose than the Oasis Surger, like, I think Hunterace now knows that he might be resetting to the point where he has to play the long game of, like, you know, stretching out resources and trying to stick a final board against removal. And in that case, things that duplicate your threats are a very, very big deal.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking Floop and I'm thinking Elise.
For Viper, too, I mean, we're looking at... Oh, gosh, I mean, just 3 boards in a row that you want to use AoE on?
This is what Druid does, though, right? Like, I'm sure Viper, knowing that there's so much Druid coming into this, and having gravitated to Control Shaman straight away, like, I'm sure he has experience in how to make all these AoEs line up favorably. And I mentioned it earlier, like, I really think the key is just finding boards that you can clear, maybe take a little bit of damage in the process, but clear without using AoE. Viper doesn't really have that luxury right now because he's taken so much damage early on from Hunterace, so he has to fully respect every single board, which costs him AoEs in the long run because he kind of has to just panic clear everything to not die.
Oh, boy.
Oh, that Witch's
Oh,
Brew
boy.
is an oof.
So he did it to draw specifically the Haunting Visions. Yeah. I'm okay with that. I actually think that probably maxes out the turn. Hunterace has got to be thinking, oh, you just got to be out of stuff now, right?
Drew the Claw. One of the few charge cards left in the game. Can represent damage from hand. If he wants to go down that route, he's just seen a Witch's Brew expended for not very much healing, but there is so much healing left in the deck. It's just, Viper hasn't found any of it. Like I said,
Yep.
2 Walking Fountains, 2 Omega Mines, and another copy of Witch's Brew.
And a Ziliax.
On top of this Ziliax and Hagatha.
Dude, honestly, it doesn't even seem like there's that much healing until you start to say it all.
Yeah, kill things and heal. That's what this that's what this deck does.
I wonder.
And that's it. Nothing more.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
that is basically it.
Time waits for no one.
Like, which cards don't fit into that plan? 2 Reign of Toads. That's about it. Yeah, I like like it. I think Hunterace just kind of saying, yeah, I'm going for the throat here. I've used so many of my big threats now anyway that even if I hang around and like wait for my flute, wait for my Elise, it's not duplicating huge bombs anyway because the Feroz is gone. No Nomi in his deck. Just gonna keep pushing.
Run it back.
Yep.
Look
No
for a
answer.
card.
No answer. Reign of Toads is a temporary answer. Not a good one.
I'm farsighting.
For what?
Walking fountain, earthquake, something.
I wonder.
Okay, yeah, walking fountains are also good. In my head, when you said that, I was like, well, only Earthquake is good here, but no walking fountain, you're chilling as well. So maybe you're right. But then it's unplayable, right? No, because the far side would be discounted when you play it. Yeah.
Oh, that's way smarter. Look at that. The heal and the shield's still there. And Wrath, important to note, Wrath does the 3 damage first. So Wrath onto Ziliax clears the shield, then leaves it as a 3-1 afterwards. I found this out in a very disappointing way the other day.
Yeah, the sequencing is always the order it's listed on the card to begin with, right?
I believe on spells, yes.
Yeah. So Wrath says deal 3 damage to a minion, or 1 damage and draw a card. So it does 3 first, then 1, because that's the order it's in.
But when you have 2 Wraths,
Going to be a Nourish this turn from Hunterace. Going to back these Wraths up with the Mind Control instead.
oh,
I mean, this one works.
that's Drew to the Claw then.
5 first, then 2.
For no one.
All right, I respect it. He's going to push. I think he does sense a little bit of weakness coming out from a couple of Viper's turns here, combined with the fact that so much AoE has already been used.
Think about how Wrath interacts with Reign of Toads as well to help push past it.
Oh, that's a great point. I love that.
And Omega Mind's looking a lot worse when you spent all your AoE
Yep.
clearing out boards that Hunterace was putting you to the test against. And so that's something else to think about for Hunterace, is forcing those AoEs before Omega Mind becomes active.
I wonder.
Yep. 100%. Massive, massive impact. Like, I'm not sure what Viper would rather do with his early to mid-game turns here. Like, maybe Walking Fountain is the big card that he's been missing, that he'd like to just be able to play one out and just deal with a board state.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can argue perhaps that the fact that he's been sat with those AoEs in hand the whole game has just made him have to use the AoEs all game, as the Walking Fountain now does come out, and Hunterace reacting to Viper just holding the top deck card in his hand. There it is.
So kind of looking back on this game, I think Viper's upset turn on that one turn was just that he didn't play Thunderhead. I think Thunderhead was just supposed to be in play to help Rumble for board. Because that's been in hand the entire game doing nothing.
Yeah, I still wonder about the like Thunderhead double lightning bolt turn that I was talking about as well, where he went Hex instead. Good old Dr. Morrigan. Ooh, that is an ugly Nourish.
Wait, that's 6 mana now? That was the other Warlock card that was buffed?
Yeah.
Oh, I just didn't know that.
Was it 7 originally?
It was 8 originally.
Oh, was it? Okay.
What to do?
That's how that's been coming out. So I kept looking at it and wondering, like, how did this get here? I'm like, I'm not going to question it right now because that's not an important detail.
Hunterace. I mean, the important detail is that Hunterace whipped pretty dang hard on that Nourish.
Yeah. Doesn't want to play Morrigan because the battle cries are really what's left valuable in the deck.
Yeah.
So that's what he's searching for. Find the Zephrys, find the Elise, dupe the hand. hope that you have a push, because I think with a turn like this one, Viper can smell some weakness on Hunterace's side. This was not the strongest turn.
Mental dislocator.
Not the strongest turn in response either, though, honestly, from Viper.
No, it's not.
Hagatha go?
Oh. Oh gosh, just everything looks bad.
Yeah.
You're going right back to 10. You just need to buy time.
If you Reign of Toads, a Zephyrus top deck for Hunterace could be lethal if it's active.
Yeah.
Swipe face first, play Zephyrus, get Master Spell. I think we'll end the game in that spot.
Reign of Toads, it's just so weak here. Like, all the spells remaining in Hunterace's deck just blow up taunts.
So what else is left apart from just Hagatha go? Viper disagrees.
So, second Reign of Toads in a row might be enough to live.
Oh, I wanted to see the Zephyrus so bad.
Why?
Just because it was a cool lethal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think it's... Zephyrus still lethal ever?
The Master Spell that I saw isn't anymore. Whether there's a different way to do it, I don't know.
Alright, Dr. Morrigan, Floop the Morrigan, Infinite Morrigans. If you don't have a minion to swap, does it go back into your deck?
Time waits for no one.
Unsure. Not a Dr. Morrigan expert.
The word swap to me would indicate it needs to have something to swap.
Yeah, like language context, I would assume it works that way too, but I don't know.
Alright, well, Hunterace, I mean, he's on Hidden Oasis to keep protecting this 4-6 and just fight on the board, so... I think Viper might have snuck out of that turn.
Oh, and the Zephyrus. One turn away.
It's nothing to do. Like, his hand just doesn't do anything.
Yeah,
He's overloaded.
Thankfully, this was the first turn where Hagatha actually felt like pretty powerful. It kills 3 minions here and restabilizes to a decent health total. But thankfully for Hunterace, at least, the overload is preventing that from happening. So now, yet again, Reign of Toads comes down. Master Spell is just lethal from the Zephyrus. It was way cooler last turn, though. I'm upset.
Yeah, it's still pretty cool.
Eh, it's all right. Assuming that it's active.
It sees 3 taunts in the way. It's like, oh, geez, I don't know. Tyrion, Gorehowl. I mean,
We were assuming it was active. Okay, it is active. Yeah. Let's double check. Oh, this is the boring way. You do it with Fireball instead. Can you still offer Master Spell, please? Oh, boo. Oh, hey, Shadow Flame's lethal. That's sweet. Shadow Flame! Why are you doing it in the boring way? I hate you, Hunterace.
Game 1 over to Hunterace. Zottle hates him.
I just want to see cool Zephyrus lethals. Is that so wrong?
I wanted to see cool matchups, and honestly, I feel like for Viper, the 2 big things I look at are the turn he had the 4-mana float off the coin to try to just get something going by like thinning his deck, trying to draw the gas, And missing that Thunderhead actually had a pretty major impact on the way that game ended up panning out, because he just was back-footed the entire rest of the way and never had time to get Thunderhead down again.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle because obviously I don't know the deck super well. It's like a brand new homebrew creation from Viper and a few of his practice partners. I played a couple of games with it just to get a grip on it, but we honestly just don't have that much time to test every new deck extensively before we have to come on here and talk about them. So I have to default to just how Viper looked playing that game, and he absolutely did not look happy with the situation. And then from there, I can only theorize on like things that he feels like he's done wrong. Like that one turn where like the Spirit of the Frogs were played and he started zapping stuff, like that looked messy. It certainly didn't look like he ended up in a position that he was aiming for. And from there, I agree with you. Like the Thunderhead usage, whether he could have got value out of it earlier, like when I suggested it, or when you were saying like just tempo on the board, just have a Thunderhead in play, because it did end up being a very, very dead card towards the end when he was just jamming it out with the Rain of Toads.
Yeah, and that's the point I'm trying to drive home, is I think he intended to play it and that the time burned out, because he had 4 mana on the turn that he coined.
Did he? I think he ended it with 3 by the time the rope
possible.
burned, though.
Maybe he thought he had 4 mana, and that was the reaction. So the reaction was like visceral to not using that extra mana.
He was upset. He was upset.
And so that's what I thought it was. So I'd have to go back and check the tape. But either way, we got to go to a break. And then when we come back, we're jumping into game number 2 of Hunterace versus Viper, the rematch of the World Championship. And right now, Hunterace is up a game. Stay tuned.
Darker than they've ever been. As evil descends from the skies, the world cries out, how will we survive? Out of the hall of explorers, and up from the dusty tombs, they grab their whips and fedoras. These legends of the past know exactly what to do. There might be magic monsters, mummies in the markets, and ancient mysticism. But this league's gonna save the world.
My name is James Kostasich. My handle is Firebat. My username is based off the StarCraft player Firebat Hero. I was a fan of him and watched him on Twitch early on in his career, and then just named myself Firebat because I thought it was cool. Something about me that people don't know, I really hate spending money. I try and save it whenever I can. I recently learned how to repair a dishwasher so that I didn't have to buy a new dishwasher. I like doing stuff like that. I get a really good sense of accomplishment and pride whenever I'm able to salvage something. My favorite Hearthstone Esports memory is winning the 2014 World Championship. That was pretty tough to beat, but I'm hoping that one day I can beat that memory. Being in Grandmasters, to me, means that I get another chance to prove myself and show that 2014 wasn't a fluke and that I am still here to play. I mean, I love playing against my own region because I get to play against a lot of my friends, which is always like really fun and entertaining, and there's so many different mind games. But at the same time, I'd really love to play against Europe and really knock them down a few pegs because they're so cocky all the time. I look forward to winning the most and losing the least. I definitely don't want to lose, and I definitely want to win, so it's really simple.
My name is Eddie Liu, formerly Sehun628. Now it's just Eddie playing. My last year I had a pretty successful year, especially since I only played this game for 2 years. I won DreamHack Atlanta. It's only a tour stall, but it meant a lot to me, especially since I was grinding really hard for a win. When I first knew that, like I received the email that I got into Grandmaster, I was really excited. I checked my email at like 10:30 and I was like hyped. I was like, oh my god, is this actually real? I think I'm a very consistent player. I think the X factor for myself is that I hate playing aggro decks, I would say. I'm a very control/anti-control player. I rather outgrind my opponent in resources. I constantly judge myself, oh, is this right? Is what I'm doing correct? And it means a lot. It means a lot to me that if other people are agreeing what I do and what I think. At this point, I just want to make Worlds. I had a pretty good record in tour stop. I think I was at least top 10, if not top 5. I think I was lucky. I think this group is the easier group, and I think I have a good chance getting out of groups.
It's Hearthstone Grandmasters for Europe, and we are in our final match of the day. Viper taking on Hunterace in this rematch of the World Championships. I'm Nathan, that's Admirable Zamora. I'm joined by Simon Sottle Welch. And let me tell you what, Sottle, that Shaman deck is looking good, but he just got beat up in that last game. He had all the AoE, he had all the things to answer, but eventually he fell short and he just got pressured out.
Well, I said it right at the start, right? Is if we need a test as to this ultimate endless AoE, endless healing deck, Druid felt like the best test to give it because that's right now it's the king of making boards. Just plays 6 or 7 cards that are just a board in a can, and you just say go, and you have a board out of nowhere. Just pops out on a spring, surprises your opponent, they freak out, they fall for it every time.
Both of us latch onto some phrase for the week that we just keep using because we thought of it and we're like, that's clever. I'm going to keep using that. And board in a can. It's probably like the 6th time you've said it this week. But I like it.
I used to say it with like Token Druid. I can't remember, like I said it, I was discussing like deck building with someone about how to like build the deck properly. And I was saying like maybe we just need less ways in the deck to like buff things or less removal or whatever, and more ways to just like, and I was just sort of searching for a way to say something. It's just like, you just like a board in a can. Like you just play it and you have stuff.
Yeah.
Ever since then, it's just been my way of describing that effect of like Tending Torrents, Cenarius, Whispering Woods. Like anything that's just one card, boom, I have a board.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the damage in a can cards. Hunterace bringing Combo Priest this week, and we heard his opinion on it yesterday where he said with Buon Samdi this might be the best deck and that the variation might have been missed prior to the patch.
Yeah, he also said, I feel like it might be favored in every matchup, which I don't know if he includes Peanut Shaman on that matchup chart specifically, whether that's something he is or is not accounting for, but certainly he did seem very, very confident in the deck's power level.
Apologies for the spectator issue we're having. We're getting it fixed as quickly as we can. Thank you for your patience on this one.
Thank you for choosing Hearthstone Grandmasters.
I'll be your tour guide for the rest of the day. Yeah, so that is officially a loss to the spectator there. So again, we apologize for that. Getting it fixed as quickly as we can. Kind of talking about the combo priest deck for Hunterace. You know, this was, I feel like a lot of the reaction to Priest receiving a nerf was a lot like the Mage reaction to it, but just not quite as much. Where people were like, you know what, Priest is still pretty good. But like the knee-jerk reaction to Mage being nerfed was everyone was like, oh, no, not going to play it. No, terrible now. The Priest was just like, it's pretty good. Like that was the recognition of it. But as this week has gone by, and I think as players have been gathering some experience perhaps in their practice or on ladder or what have you, that deck is still really sick. Like, it features a lot of ways to kind of have a 30-30 in a can, I guess, so to speak. Like, it just Divine Spirits and Interfire kills people.
No, it doesn't work like that. We'd have to make 30-30.
Oh, yeah, excuse me.
One card.
Excuse me. Yeah, that's correct. It doesn't work that way. Divine Spirit and Interfire never kills people.
I mean,
you're like, no, that's not what I meant.
For the longest time, that was true, though, right? Like, you'd open up Hearthstone, you'd start scrolling through Priest, and you're like, oh, you have a card that doubles the health, and you have a card that makes the attack equal to the health. Like, this combo must be sick. Like, I'm pretty sure every new player has gone through that experience at some point. And for several years, it just didn't work. There just wasn't a viable deck that made that happen and actually killed people.
Yeah.
And then suddenly things changed, and there has been a variation of Divine Spirit Inner Fire Priest being viable, kind of in alternate metas, I'd say, for some people. It seems like it takes one expansion off and then comes back, and then takes one expansion off and then comes back.
It's had like pocket spots in the meta.
Right.
Like where you're like, oh, wait a minute, no one's playing a weird removal spell. I can use Meat Wagon and Meatwagon will summon this 0-9, and then I can kill people with the 0-9. Like, that happened for a good couple weeks.
We did that for a while, yeah.
And the two biggest changes this deck really received was it got another Circle of Healing style of effect with Neferset Ritualist.
Yep.
And it got another Injured Minion with Injured Tolvir. Like, those two cards were enough to set it over the top.
I'm going to keep going, because it also got Armet and it also got Psychopomp.
Those cards made it tier 1.
Okay.
I think this deck would have been a solid tier 2 deck without those cards. And I think with those cards, it is a solid tier 1.
And we take those cards out and then hit Legend with it.
Easy.
Okay. I mean, I want you to do it. That's all I'm saying.
I hit Legend with a Water Elemental last season, all right?
Did you?
Yeah.
Like, what were you playing?
A mage deck.
Okay.
An elemental mage deck.
Okay.
And it was one ofs, and I didn't have Reno. I take that back. There was two ofs. It was Mana Cyclone and Invocation. But I didn't have Reno for whatever reason. So we missed a little bit of the game, but you can see kind of what's happened.
Yeah.
Hit play, it died.
Right, exactly. We're just missing a little bit of context on exactly what died. It was possible in that revive pool, but now we're here. Revive pool! But now we're here at least. We know what's going on.
Psychopomp, of course, a big fan of Mr. T.
Oh, notoriously, yeah. And it looks like this might be one of those games for BombSamD if Hunterace is going to be able to get out of this one.
Yeah, it's this
right
turn.
now, there is just nothing going on. There's a Thunderhead on the board, and Priest cannot interact with it.
I must consider.
So, question mark.
Well, you do what you can. Kill the totem. Consider the ritualists. Coin BombSamD next turn.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's not the worst thing in the world because Viper's deck doesn't really take advantage of this. Like, all this does is give him more time to get to the late game. So the thing for Hunterace to consider is he's playing the Ritualists as a nod to hand space. He's included additional 1-cost cards with Beaming Sidekick as well. So the possibilities are 2 Northshire, 2 Light Warden, and 2 Beaming Sidekick.
Yep.
So if those are all in the deck, if we missed one of those being played, it happens. I don't think we did. But that would be 6 cards coming into hand. So he's going to drop to 6, coin to 5, BombSamD to 4, and then have a full hand.
I wonder.
So both Ritualists helps thin that deck out. Their time has passed.
Sounds great and everything. He's going to have a full hand, but he's still not going to have a board. And you still have to stick a minion with this deck. It's pretty hard to do that no matter how many 1-drops you have, unless you have High Priest Armet, where you can just jam them all down with like 7+ health alongside that.
Well, mind you, I mean, Viper's got to take care of the BombSamD too. Like, that's still a 7/7.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, having Thunderhead still on board will certainly help that procedure. There you go. Just going to make sure he still has a Thunderhead on board. Didn't draw a card that turn, essentially, by picking up a 1-drop.
The way I look at it is now you don't have to burn your circle again.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Silver linings and all that.
For Viper, the Hagatha scheme ticked up to 7 in that previous turn.
Yeah. Been in his hand since the opening, so it just matches his mana crystals as it passes back to his turn. It's the easy way to think about it, I guess.
Okay, BombSamD is sick. Like, I've thought about it, and it seemed okay. I played it one time, and I forgot to put in the Beaming Sidekicks. With the Beaming Sidekicks, that is just...
I wonder.
Wow, that is good.
It's kind of crazy, right? I think now Armet is the card for Hunterace, because if he draws the Armet, he can have a turn where like he Armets and Divine Spirits the Armet and then just plays a bunch of 14 health minions, which, like, Viper's deck plays a lot of mass removal, but it's not hard mass removal. It's not Twisting Nether, it's not Brawl. It deals damage to minions en masse.
He's not playing a copy of Plague of Murlocs either. No transformation.
Right.
In terms of mass transformation.
So at that point, it would be Hexes to take care of things, and it would be Haunting Visions into Plague of Murlocs or something similar.
Yeah, and so Viper's got to get set up, I think, to somehow deal with that, which is, you know, either going to be through Hagatha or it's going to be through pressure. And both of those are looking fairly slim right now. Like, Hagatha's not coming down for another turn here. And there's not like Bloodlust or anything in this deck. So, you know, pressure not necessarily a realistic possibility at the moment.
Right. Single copy of the 0 mana Silence in Hunterace's deck, no Master Spell. I think in the face of Reign of Toads, he would much rather be playing a Master Spell in the deck.
So as good as Ahmet is, I'm trying to think of the other things that are good. Like, Wild Pyromancer seems good, but that's like too many cards you're drawing.
Yeah. I like the more of these minions you commit to the board without, you know, buffing their health total, the more problematic it feels, because you're just throwing them into an AoE, which I think you have to give Viper credit for having by this point. He plays so many of them.
Oh, I wanted you to have this turn planned out. This is a lot of thinking with Northshire draws.
Yes, it is.
I am now officially worried.
Consider.
Is someone injured?
Quickly.
I think that's the right spot for the shield on the 2-3.
Why? Personally, I like it on the 7/7.
In the light's name.
Because 7 is the number that dies to Earthquake, and it's also the number that dies to a Hagatha Scheme that would have been in the opening hand up until now.
So the question that I've had a lot with Hunterace and the way that he's playing is he trying to force an AoE? Is he inviting you to AoE because he's got ways to reload into this?
Okay.
Because if he loads up on the 7/7, you just trade stuff into it and then you AoE. So it's the exact same thing. So when it lines up cleanly like this, it's like balancing that perspective. Like, do you want to AoE? You're blowing up your whole board. It's like, if it's loaded on the Bonsam, you're like, oh, well, I have a reason for these minions to be here now. Tick that down health and then AoE.
I mean,
you're almost like discouraging it, but encouraging it. It's a weird perspective.
We appear to have had a role reversal here, but if you put the health onto the Bomb Samdi and the minions have to trade into it before they AoE, those minions don't get to hit you in the face before you AoE.
I don't think Hunterace is worried about that.
Okay.
And I don't think Viper's concerned about that either.
There's little time. I wonder.
It's mostly by proxy of the matchup. Like, it's super weird that Viper's like never trying to kill Hunterace. He's like, I will kill your henchman, not you.
I mean, yeah, that is true.
He's just weakening Bonsabdi in anticipation of something crazy happening and him not having a board, and Hunterace having the goods to buff up and win.
Hunterace is now just kind of fully stalled out unless he can revive a cleric this turn.
That's the thing. I'm curious if we drew enough cards last turn.
Right. It was hard to draw more without getting into overdraw territory. Like, even when he played the 2 clerics, he couldn't circle because he was just burning cards because the Thunderhead was getting healed on the other side of the board as well. So it's a very, very awkward turn to navigate. As mentioned, there are 2 clerics in here. There's one of them.
Fist pump from Hunterace too.
Circle would leave him with 7 cards in hand and would draw 4 right now. So again, that's burning.
Quickly.
First inner fire free to use.
Now, if your intention is to one-punch man your opponent, then yes, it is.
Cashing it for 3 cards. Hero power would be the 4th. Still no Amen.
I really just think that's the card here. If you look at the cards that Hunterace is holding on to as well, it's the cards that just makes the biggest Armet possible while playing a bunch of one-drops. Like, I think that is just the plan that you have to default back to here.
And it's such a smart plan, you know, like with open deck list as the format here, you're able to identify that. Like, you can prepare that ahead of time and go, well, let me try this iteration. Be like, if I Amit and make a bunch of 14 health things, they die.
Yeah. I mean, it's still holding on to the what's the name of the card? Beaming something?
Beaming Sidekick.
Beaming Sidekick, that's the one, thank you. You Divine Spirit first, then the first Beaming Sidekick comes down, and then, like, yeah, that's a 14 health one, but it just keeps getting better after that as you keep playing one-drops afterwards.
So how big is that scheme at?
9. Told you, it's been in the hand since the opening. It matches the mana crystals.
That for my head can't connect those two for some reason. In my head, it's like, this is variable damage. Yeah, but Viper's he's gonna Earthquake.
Yeah, Hunterace gets his AoE.
For Hunterace, he's got Acolyte, Wild Pyro, and Power Word Shield to get the next turn going. Find that Amit.
I think he wants it right now, though. He wants it on the natural draw more than anything. Oh.
Plan B. Find it.
Crucial as well that he has a Circle of Healing available, because if he does go for that plan, what Viper can still do is just cast his scheme. Like, no matter how little of the board it takes care of, he just casts it to deal 10 damage to the entire board, and then, you know, Divine Spirit Inner Fire is less effective coming back at you. So because Hunterace still has a circle left, he can then still threaten lethal for situations where that's the case.
Yeah, because you need the Amit to be a huge health total, so that way your other minions have huge health total. It's like, you don't care that it's the Amit, you care that it's a bunch of health across your minions.
Yes.
So you're not free to, like, play the Amit, sidekick, Divine Spirit, Light Warden. Like, you have to have other things to do with it. Like, you want to Amit Divine Spirit.
Yeah,
and
you
then
want a huge health total on your Amit,
yeah,
and then play minions afterwards.
Because you could make the health total colossal enough that, you know, the Amit pretty much would do the job.
Right. But you also need to spread, you need a relatively huge amount of health on lots of minions so that you're not just vulnerable to, like, 2 hexes. Because you could do it in a way as well where, like, you put the Beaming Psychic on the Armet first and then Divine Spirit last, and then you have 2 huge minions with ridiculous amounts of health, but then you're vulnerable to double hex, for example.
Yeah.
So, like, 14-ish health across 4+ minions, that's what you're going for. And if that's the case, Viper then goes, oh crap, I'm just going to scheme this for 11 or 12 anyway, just to cut that total down so Inner Fire is less effective, and then the Circle of Healing and other healing becomes more powerful.
What do you do after turn 10? Then how do you calculate the damage?
Then you can mouse over the Spectator and check. Then I will allow it.
You will allow it!
Yeah.
What about Amit double Divine Spirit?
All right.
You get 3 giant minions.
So we've been talking about it the entire game as if this is certainly the plan. It has to be, right? Like, even in the world of Hunterace, where he can come up with some wacky, genius, galaxy brain lines, he has to be on the same page as us, right?
I see a dark future.
Let's go.
Hey, I got you, friend.
Yep, perfect. 14 to 16 to 18, and then the Light Warden.
Hey, I got you, friend.
This is exactly what I had in mind. And you don't do the second Divine Spirit, I think, because you want to, like, pick and choose the minion that comes down on afterwards.
Reserve it for the moment.
Yes.
In the
Also just gets more minions in play.
Yes.
Quickly.
Beautiful. So now Viper Haunting Visions to look for Murloc transform. If he whiffs, you just have to cast the scheme to hack through as much health as you can and make Inner Fire as dangerous.
Don't whiff, though. Like, you hit the Plague, it is so good.
It's just game over. Like, that just ends the game.
Path dimly lit.
Scheme's 11 now, is that right? Yep, it's 11.
path dimly lit.
Whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. What is going on here?
Well, it discounts the next spell by 3. So if you miss,
Okay. Which he does.
well, you can run it back.
Yep. Nope.
Pair of hexes is not good enough.
Got a scheme. You just gotta hack the health. Just cut into it what you can. Yep. I respect this.
That's still enough. Yeah,
That is for sure. Healing it up, Divine Spirit, Inner Fire, Light Warden getting buffed all the time, extra arms not even needed, but Hunterace jamming it on for style points anyway. The undefeated streak continues. The repeat of the World Championship final occurs. Viper looking distraught still, perhaps with some nightmares over that first game. You said to me during the break, we're going to a game 3 here, because I've been playing this deck on ladder and I've been crushing some priest. And what was my response, Admirable? Most priests aren't Hunterace. He knew the line, he executed it, he was patient, he waited. How does Shaman interact with that board?
That was a hard carry by Bwansamdi.
Okay, all right.
Bwansamdi hard carried that game.
All right, I mean, yeah, no argument.
That
Kinda
is
true.
such a beautiful inclusion into that deck. And the addition of the beaming sidekicks to give you 1-cost minions to just play alongside your Ahmet is so important.
Bwansamdi with the alley-oop from High Priest Ahmet. I think we have to throw that in there as well. Don't think we can call it a hard carry because Ahmet was the spectacular ender that you needed.
Generic sports ball reference here that no one understands.
Beautiful.
Hunterace is ready for an interview. Hunterace, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys.
Well, congratulations on your win here. The Bwansamdi was so impressive on this one. You told us yesterday that you think this might be the best deck in the metagame, and I think you demonstrated that. So my question to you is, what's the second best deck in the metagame? What's really shaping up to take number 2 spot right now?
I don't know, Admiral. I can't leak everything, you know. Gotta save that for next week. I'll tell you then.
Fair enough.
Okay, so Paladin. Mark that.
So I want to ask you about that priest game in particular. Like, how early were you planning towards like the Ahmet plus a bunch of 1-drops thing? Because we started talking about it pretty early because it looked like you were forced out.
Basically,
Go ahead.
when you played the Thunderhead. Basically, when you played the
Right,
Thunderhead, I thought it was just over for me in the early game. So I drew a super slow start. Normally with the deck, you get like more aggressive start. So that's like was my initial game plan. But since I had such a slow start, and at the same time I drew so many cards with the Bwansamdi, I felt that I had the option to go for that Ahmet game plan, which is a bit, I don't know. I'm not very experienced with it because I have not played versus that Shaman on ladder at all. But I looked at his deck and he doesn't have an answer to it, so.
Right, that's kind of what we said. That that feels like the one board you can make that deck doesn't interact with, right? So that's just like what you go for, right?
Yeah, it's only like double Hagata scheme or something.
Right.
So I want to talk about the first game as well. Your facial expression looked quite pained in the first game. What was going through your head as you were sitting like around the turn 4 stage? Because I think that's where it really started.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was super stressed going into this series. I have very little to almost 0 experience versus any of Viper's decks. So I just had my theory crafting and my small testing before. And to be honest, I was super uncertain about how the series was going to end up in general. I was uncertain about like what he was going to protect. I was also super uncertain about what I was going to ban because the way that Viper's lineup functions is that he kind of has 2 lineups in one lineup where he has the control shaman and warrior who kind of wants to do one thing, and he also has the druid and rogue which supports another strategy. So it's a bit hard to predict what he's going to go for. And he ended up going for the protect shaman, which was very surprising, but it makes a lot of sense basing it on, I think that he thinks it beats priest at least. Because looking on paper, it should be a very strong deck versus the priest. The only thing that the priest really has towards the long game is kind of exactly what I did with the Ahmet.
Yeah, so I want to ask you, you are now 4-0 this season, 11-0 in league play in general, like only that loss in playoffs kind of blemishing that streak. Are you ever going to lose a game of Hearthstone again, Casper?
We'll keep at it. Just gotta win some more now. We're also saving the streak for the playoffs this time. We're gonna not stop there, you know.
Gotcha.
Well, I noticed that you finished #1 on ladder as well. I mean, does that factor into saving for the streak? I mean, I feel like that's a lot of Hearthstone that gets played to achieve #1 finish for the month.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just playing the Bones Hamdi Priest when no one else was playing it, so it was just free, basically.
All right. Well, I guess #1 is just free if you play on Europe, regardless of who you are. Hunterace, congratulations on your win today. It's always impressive to see you play, and you have so many things thought out ahead of time. I wish I could spend just a few minutes inside your brain. Thank you very much for your time, and good luck next week.
All right, talk to you guys later.
The only 4-0 start in Europe goes to the man himself, the world champion, Hunterace.
Yeah, and I think it took him a little bit of time to get to grips to the format last season, and we were talking about, how disappointing a start he was having. He then quickly got a handle on it, 7-0 sweep, beat every single player in the second rotation of games in Season 1, and now he's following that up perfectly with a 4-0 perfect start. And honestly, perfect is a pretty nice word for it, because it's hard to even pick holes in any of his lineup construction in the way that he's played. Anytime he's been in a tricky spot like he was in that Shaman game, he's just found the way to dig himself out of it. Hunterace is a special card game player.
He certainly is. I've been playing cards for 23 years, and I've never seen anything like this, especially at such a young age. Let's take a look at the schedule and see what we have. As our Supreme Sunday, for Europe anyway, has come to an end. We had matches all over the place in this one, and a lot of players picking up crucial wins that they needed. Tice and Swids in particular are two of the players that come to mind for me. They needed to pick up W's in order to keep their seasons from looking awfully dreary going into week 3.
Yeah, Tice improved his record to 2-2 overall. Swids put his first win up on the board, getting himself to a 1-3 record. But as you mentioned, crucial for those not to fall away. We do have the 1-0-4 in the face of Fino, which is just so unexpected in comparison to what he did last season. But of course, as we've talked about at length already, the expected thing perhaps is the Hunterace dominance. He has the exact opposite record. He has a perfect 4-0 topping his group.
So for me, big surprise this week was just Viper's lineup in general. He brought some pretty wacky stuff to the table and ended up with a 1-1 score. This series didn't go as expected for him, but Saad, I'm curious, any big surprises that stood out to you this week, given the balance patch hit and we had a ton of decks in play this week?
Surprises, sure. The Priest being in Kalento's lineup, even though we didn't see it, it threw us for a loop on our prep day so much as we were trying to work out what was going on. Aggro Warrior being in Silvername's lineup. Silvername's lineup in general just seems like a giant 50-page memo addressed to the desk of chief titled, "This ain't it." It really just, I don't understand what he was going for with the lineup. Even though Tice came out in the end and said that he felt like he was unfavored against it, he said that he wasn't really a fan of the lineup overall. So there's been surprises on both, positive and negative side, but overall, I think this season of Grandmasters with the format that we have, but also with the metagame and the decks that we have, is really, being a very, very enjoyable experience for me as a commentator anyway, and hopefully I hope for the viewers at home as well.
Indeed, and so that's going to bring us to a close here for Europe. We are done until next week, but Hearthstone's not over. We still got to head over to the Americas region for that. So for myself and Saad Production, we are wrapped up right here, but if you're itching for more Hearthstone, stick around because the Americas region with Frodan and TJ is coming up.